You're listening to WPEA 90.5 FM, Exeter. Welcome to the School of Athens. I'm Aavik Wadivkar.
I'm Carter Otis.
And I'm Charlie Scales.
And we are back. We are so back, boys.
We are so back. It's been a second. We've been on break. Took a while to get broadcasting started again. But we're back with philosophy as per usual. So, Aavik, today's your topic. How do you want to start?
Today is my topic. So, have you ever done something and you felt really bad about it?
For sure.
All the time? Have you ever done something and felt really good about it?
Yes, equally so.
Rarely.
All right. I see we got two different members of the human species here, right? How do you know how do you know whether something you've done is good or bad?
It feels good or bad. Yeah, if I do something bad, I feel guilty about it, right? Like something inside of me, I feel like it was wrong, and vice versa. When something happy happens, I feel happy. I don't know.
I personally base my morality off of law and external factors like society and what other people think about me.
Okay, so I see we got two different sets of rules here. Now, Carter, you kind of make your basis on vibes, and Charlie, you kind of make your basis on, a set of rules, right?
Yeah, well, when I was growing up, it was always that, when I did something, my mother would either say, good job, or how could you have done this to me?
Okay, so you're kind of based on externals right there, right?
Yeah, so law, yeah. Law and other people's opinions, yeah.
Law, authority, all that.
Exactly.
And Carter, you're kind of based, for one, you said that it feels bad, right? But, do you think you were born with that kind of feeling bad, or do you think that kind of developed?
No, I think I learned it and kind of got it from the society around me. But I think it's hard, like Charlie's saying, to base it off laws because, there are laws I disagree with, or people could make laws that are arbitrarily bad to me, and I wouldn't follow them just because they're laws.
Okay. So, right here we have two very different sides of the morality or ethics or whatever coin. But first, y'all know morality?
Never heard of her.
Yeah. Morality is doing the right thing, kind of. Or it's knowing what the right thing is, kind of. Or it's knowing what the right thing to do is, kind of.
Or is it the right thing? Or is it the wrong thing? I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Not me.
It's almost like a sense of what is right and what is wrong. What ought we do and what ought not we do. Yeah. Now, it's also commonly confused with ethics. They're very similar, but they are not the same. Morality is more kind of an individual's kind of internal principles, right? So Carter, this would almost be your experience regarding right and wrong, is that it's guided by your own internal principles, whatever they may be. Now, Charlie, your rules are based by externals. They're based by the laws, the authorities you're governed by, and the authorities that have governed you in your lives, such as your mommy. And so everyone has a different kind of source. But Carter, you also mentioned that, hey, maybe you weren't actually born with this intrinsic nature of good or bad. Maybe you were raised within a society, and that ethics that you've been raised around has become an internal morality. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about different ways of knowing what the right thing or the wrong thing to do is. And we first start with what Carter said. Carter, you were like vibes, basically.
Right, vibes, it's straightforward. I can't explain it to you because we have different values, but what I think is just right for me, and that changes day to day. It's subjective, so it's hard to pin down, and it's not a real satisfying definition of what's right and wrong, but yeah, the stuff that just makes sense.
So it's almost like common sense, right?
Yeah.
And that is exactly what common sense morality is, believe it or not. It's just this inherent feeling of morality that everyone might have within what you believe is good or what you believe is bad. And it's kind of the majority of how people view their own morality in terms of, okay, well, it feels good to me or it feels bad to me. If people don't, of course, just try and judge their lives by what they're told is good or what they're told is bad, they'll have this inherent sense. Where does this inherent sense come from? Well, that's a question for another time. But for now, common sense morality is kind of the basis by how we live our day-to-day lives. There's some problems, though. Have you all heard of the trolley problem?
Oh, I have. This cool radio show that I know that runs on WPEA covered it once.
Yeah, I think we've covered it a couple of times.
Like probably 3 or 4.
Just on separate occasions. It's just so good. But yeah, I'm only pulling it up for like a short kind of time, because the trolley problem is inherently a problem about morality, about ethics. Since y'all are so familiar, can one of you tell me, Carter, what is the trolley problem?
Of course. So the idea is you have a trolley, and it's heading down a track that will inevitably kill 5 people who are unable to escape from the track.
That is quite a problem.
However, there's a twist. You have a lever, and you can divert the train to another track where it would kill 1 person. So the dilemma here is, if you start, you're an innocent bystander, you can claim you didn't know what was happening, you can just let it kill 5 people, you didn't involve yourself in the situation at all. You pull the switch, though, you become an active participant, right? And so some people would claim that then you murdered that 1 person because you made the choice that killed them. And then, people would respond to that. Well, if you don't, you're murdering the 5 people through your inaction.
Okay.
Inaction is an action.
Bars. Very much. So, I mean, a lot of times when we ask people about the trolley problem, they say they would hit the lever because, frankly, 5 lives is more than 1. And not many people are willing to say that, I don't want to like put myself in the hot seat, so to speak. I don't want to implicate myself and kill 5 people by just standing there if I know I can do something to stop it. Because most people think they're good people. Anyways, we'll see if that's true. However, there's a variation of the problem called the, for lack of a better word, doctor transplant problem. Now, imagine you're a doctor, or you're some kind of medical aficionado, whatever that may be, and you have 5 patients, and they're all missing organs of some sort, or they all have failing organs of some sort. Like maybe one needs another working lung, one needs another working kidney, one needs a working liver, one needs a working heart, and one needs a working spleen. What are some other organs?
Appendix.
Liver.
No, I don't know about appendix. I think we can do that.
Liver.
No, we already said liver.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Gallbladder.
Stomach.
Gallbladder.
Stool?
Gallbladder.
Yeah.
Stool.
Transplant?
I think we're. So basically, we got 5 people, and they're like dying, right? If they don't get this stuff, they will die. Ignore the fact that you can live with 1 kidney. If that guy doesn't get it, he's gonna die. And the problem is, these guys have a crazy rare blood type. They've got like AB negative or whatever it is, right? And you're like, dang, these 5 guys are all about to die because they're all missing organs. And then this dude strolls in, random guy strolls in, and he's like, so then this guy walks in, as I was saying, and you learn that he has, as you can see, the exact same number of, the exact, not number, what is it? The exact same blood type, right?
Right. So a guy strolls in full of rare blood and just chock full of organs, right? Ripe for the taking.
Exactly.
Convenient for the people who need organs.
So is it morally right to kill this guy, harvest his organs, and then give it to your 5 patients?
Because it's the same math as before, but now it's more personal, right? It's not like you flip a switch and you watch a trolley hit someone. Like, you have to kill the guy with your own hands.
Yeah, these 5 people are going to die anyways. Is it right to kill this 1 guy just to save the other 5?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, without getting too far into it, I mean, we could have a full discussion on this, but there are a lot of variations on this, right? Where, a lot of people say, like, of course, I'd kill the 1 person over the 5 people, but like, okay, what about 2 people versus 1 person? What if the 1 person's the president? 5 versus 1, but 5 are all your family. What about your best friend versus a random person? All those kind of things is you can keep adding these variations, and, people seem so adamant on the first one, the 5v1, obviously, 5 is more than 1. But if you start adding, different values to it, you can start to see, 5 criminals versus 1 normal person, that kind of thing. And so you can start like trying to tease out like differences in morality where people really start to disagree with these.
Mm-hmm. And my point in bringing this all up is this is the problem with common sense morality, is that it's not consistent even within the same person, right? If two problems are really consistent in that, it's 5 versus 1, but all that changes is just the context. It doesn't really change the nature of the choice itself. Then, like, these 5 things, these 5 people have different values based on how you think of them, and that's the problem with common sense morality. It changes based on the person. It changes based on the culture. It changes based on the situation. And it's just not at all consistent.
That's why I rely on external sources like governmental bodies and lawyers and judges and common law to formulate what I think of as good and bad.
Well, now let's talk about that. So now we have systems of morality, which is frankly what this whole thing today is about. Systems of morality are more about rules of not morality itself, but how to think about morality. It's not necessarily saying a huge list saying this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is good, this is bad, right? It's not the 10,001 commandments. It is a rule of how to think about things. And there are 4 different rule sets that we'll be going over today, which are kind of the common rule sets that you'll run into when talking about moral philosophy. Now, before we get into all of that, we're going to take a very short break, and we will be right back. Carter, take us out.
This has been and will continue to be after the break. School of Athens, WPEA 90.5 FM. Please stay with us.
And we are back. Welcome. This is WPEA 90.5 FM Exeter, School of Athens. Carter, who are you?
Carter.
Charlie, who are you?
I'm Charlie.
And I'm Aavik. So we just left off with a bunch of morality, a bunch of ethics, a bunch of different introductions to how to think about good and bad. And now we're going to move on to some actual systems of morality. Let's start naming them. So,
hey, are you saying my system isn't a real system?
Correct.
It's not Carter.
It is not Carter.
Fine, continue.
Carterism. No, it's system. It's gotta have rules, man. It can't just be vibes.
Fine.
So, first up, we've got the most basic, frankly, system of morality, which is called consequentialism. Right? It's an ethical theory. Actually, sorry. When I say system of morality, it's kind of a misnomer, right? Because morality is all about an individual's principles. I'm talking about an ethical theory. An ethical theory being rules outside oneself. Now, consequentialism is an ethical theory about, whether something is right or wrong by what, as the name suggests, its consequences are. So, you might say that, lying is always wrong, but hold on, if telling a lie, if it'll save a person's mortgage or save a person's marriage or save a person's life, maybe it is the right thing to do because it has good consequences, even though the act itself is dishonest or perhaps immoral. So consequentialism is about what the end products are. Basically, so there are some problems with this. Now, Carter, have you ever been a consequentialist?
Sure. Let's say yes.
Yeah.
Let's say I love consequentialism.
All right. So you don't care about how something gets done as long as it gets done.
The ends justify the means. If it all turns out well in the end, that's all right.
Okay. How about you, Charlie? You a consequentialist?
By basing my morality on law, I think it necessitates that I discount any means that go against that law and hence my morality.
That answer had a lot of syllables. I'm going to be real.
Okay, well, I'll say it. No, I'm not. I'm not a consequentialist. Because, okay, listen. So, Aavik?
Yes.
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
If your family was in crippling debt and you had a sick daughter or something like that was going to die if you didn't get enough money to pay her medical bills or put her through the medical process in the first place, or afford her medicine, what have you, would you rob a bank? Would you go through with thievery or robbery or some sort of extortion in order to acquire said money?
Okay. Well, first, I mean, the American healthcare system is a scam.
It is.
I just had to get that out of the way. My daughter, my only daughter, is it my only daughter?
It's your only daughter.
My only daughter.
Your pride and joy.
My pride and joy. She's about to die, and the feds ain't doing nothing to help me. I don't know. I mean, Carter, according to you, right? If it's the ends justify the means, right? And the ends are I save my daughter's life, and the means are a bank loses a couple hundreds, right? I feel like I should do it.
Right. Consequentialism would say yes. Because, I mean, at least, consequentialism is a bit biased, right? You're not the bank. Like, you're just gaining the money. But, consequentialism would say go for it.
Okay. Then could I like Carter, Charlie? You said extortion, right? So I mean, extortion. I feel like that's immoral. But can I extort people for money? Is that allowed within consequentialism?
Well, I guess I don't know. I see a couple downsides. Stepping away from my previous consequentialist self, I see a couple downsides with consequentialism. Namely, it requires a comparison of ethical acts, right? Not only are some acts good and some acts are bad, but some acts are more good or more bad, right? Like say
I think the word is better, but yeah, go on.
more good and more bad. So like letting your daughter die is bad, but robbing a bank is also bad. And so consequentialism means you have to compare the two and say which is the lesser evil. And so not everyone is going to have the same answer for that. And it's also impossible to like measure, right? Oh, this is 7 bads worth. Like this is 3.5 badness. Like
right.
it's impossible.
Because bad to one person is gonna be good to another, like you said. Like your response to Carter's system of morality, Aavik, was that it's his vibes for what is good and bad aren't universal for everybody, and aren't universal for every culture, and vary from time to time as well. For example, I mean, slavery was considered moral for a long time. Maybe not moral, but a lot of people considered it to be, a just act.
Right, part of their way of life.
Right. So it's challenging.
And I would say a more obvious critique of consequentialism is you don't know what's going to happen. Like, this is kind of saying, like, oh, you weigh the pros and cons, you go for it or you don't go for it. But it's impossible to know, right? Maybe you rob the bank and you can't save your daughter. Now you've just done a bad thing for no reason, right? And so it's impossible to know what the consequences of your actions are going to be before. I mean, you can try and have a rough idea, but there's always going to be unintended consequences that you come across, especially over time. And I mean, I don't know. Consequentialism just sounds a bit idealist to me.
Okay. That's fair. It feels like consequentialism is a little too naive, ironically. So, how about something else? How about something about how much it helps people?
Oh, interesting. I like helping people.
Okay, this is utilitarianism, right? And it's basically something is good if it's good for the majority of people, or something is good based on how much good or how much happiness it adds to the world, right? If it promotes happiness and if it promotes goodness, whatever the school says, right? Knowledge and goodness. And so it's basically maximizing happiness, maximizing goodness, being the best us that we can be. That feels pretty good, right?
Right. I like that so far.
Charlie, you mess with that?
I do. I mess with happiness.
Okay. You mess with eudaimonia?
I do mess with eudaimonia. I mess with ataraxia.
What are those things?
So eudaimonia is like it's like tranquility, and ataraxia is turbulence, but it's like it represents being calm in turbulence. That's unrelated though. I think maybe.
Vaguely. We get to Aristotle at some point.
At some point. Yeah, we'll get there.
Today, actually, we will.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Utilitarianism. It's straight up like how happy can we be? How sad can we be? It is kind of consequentialism, right? It's like something is good or bad based on the effects it has on our world, right? Even though it's not, consequences can be positive, right? And making someone happy is a positive. I mean, that feels pretty good to me. Why not though?
So the difference that I'm noting between them is utilitarianism mentions a majority and consequentialism does not. Is that true?
I think it's true to a certain degree. It's like the greatest good is the one that benefits the majority.
Right.
Versus if it benefits the majority versus benefiting the minority, if those are your choices, always take the majority.
Now, wait a minute. Are we saying that if you hurt a minority and help a majority, that is net positive in the world?
That is correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's utilitarianism, baby. So I mean, I feel like we can hurt some minorities to help some majorities. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Personally, as someone who's taking Violence, War, and Peace right now, I hear we just watched an interesting documentary about a lot of generals who use the word utilitarianism, right? People say, well, it was necessary to like ethnically cleanse this region because it's for the greater good of democracy and freedom. And so utilitarianism, has that idea of like net positive, where you can absorb these like moral losses by doing bad things because they are to some greater, higher, better purpose.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Ethnic cleansing. I guess I'm not a fan of that, right?
No, most people aren't. But I mean, if you're a fan of America, you could be partially.
What parts of America?
I would say the history up until very, very recently, like the 20th, mid-20th century. The last death march was in, I want to say the 1950s. But I could be wrong.
What is a death march?
So it's when you tell everyone, pick up your stuff and go. No matter how old and sick and feeble you are, you have to walk. They did that to the 5 civilized tribes. The most famous one of the Trail of Tears in the early 19th century. I don't remember exactly when.
So it's basically when you like upheave, like you just tell an entire people to just pick up your stuff. Let's go.
Yep, and sometimes by bayonet point. Other times, you say, we'll give you food and water and stuff, but you still got to go. And inevitably and invariably, there will be casualties along the way of elderly folk, children, specifically the vulnerable, the sick, people like that. And it was purposefully done to. There's a lot of historical context there, but it was intentionally harsh in order to. How did we get here?
Well, we're talking about utilitarianism. And,
right. And so,
it helps the greater good.
Net positive. I mean, if you think about, we get more settlers. Mm-hmm. Georgia doesn't have a Cherokee problem to worry about anymore. They're not trying to go to war against the Cherokee or to get their land anymore.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of people in Oklahoma now, in the so-called Indian Territory at the time, that you don't have to worry about anymore. They're over there doing their own thing, and we'll get to them later. But for now, we have the region east of the Mississippi to worry about.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, okay, so it seems like utilitarianism kind of justifies some stuff that, I don't know, shouldn't be justifiable, like ethnic cleansing and death marches and slavery.
I mean, it could be justifiable. I guess it depends on the person. I mean, we're picking very bad people, but I mean, you could say in the bank robbery for the sick daughter, right? That's utilitarian as well, right? You can say like bank robberies are generally bad, but helping sick people is generally good, and helping sick people is generally more good than robbing banks is bad. So it's, I mean, the calculus kind of just depends on the person.
Okay, yeah, banks are insured, right? They're chilling. They can ask the government for money.
Right. But I think what we've seen so far is like both of these value systems are based heavily on the individual, right? There's no like people should act this way always, or sometimes, or according to these conditions. Consequentialism and utilitarianism are very much based on the individual. So if you're looking for, if you're shopping for a morality just for yourself, great options. Otherwise, if you're looking to create a society off of these, somewhat less great, maybe.
Okay, that's a fair point. What about we talk about someone's morality who was actually interested in a society and in groups of people, and particularly in I'm not forgetting, what's the Greek word for like society and polis. Polis,
yes.
Yeah, let's talk about Aristotle. Oh my God. Right? So Aristotle pioneered this ethical theory that we're still talking about today because, the Greek guys were first in the Western world. And frankly, were they that smart or were they just first? We may never know. But he first came up with virtue ethics. So my boy was basically like act according to virtues, right? And virtues are like things that you want to attain, right? They're things that you should want to be. And if you don't do those things, or you do things that are the opposite of attaining those great good things, then you're just kind of immoral, right? Or unethical. But if you do those things, right? And if you do things that align with those things, right? Then you become more ethical. So Aristotle has, Aristotle has like a lot of stuff. But in particular, he made this distinguishing thing between virtues and vices, right? And his whole deal was like, hey, everything you do, you can do a right amount of, right? You can do a right amount of it if you do it in moderation, right? If you do it too little, then that's a deficiency, and that's a vice, which is something you should avoid. If you do it too much, then that's an excess, And that's also another vice. And if you do it in the middle, you do it moderately, you do it in the mean, which is math word, I guess. You do it a middle amount of. You do it the right amount. And so there are a bunch of stuff that you can all do in the right amount. Like, I don't know, what if you're just like a really uncomfortable or unconfident person, right? If you're so unconfident and fearful, then that's a negative, right?
Right. Then you're too cowardly. You don't stick up for yourself. You don't stick up for others, right? You just push it around. So that's bad.
Okay, what if you're too like confident? What if you're not fearful enough?
You can be brash and you can make decisions that might harm you and others.
But if you're like Goldilocks, right? Chilling in that middle zone, then that's courageous, you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm personally enjoying some of these other ones. For a conversation, an excess of conversation is buffoonery, right? You won't shut up. You just keep yapping forever.
Me and the boys engaged in some buffoonery on God.
And then a deficiency of conversation is boorishness, right? You're not saying anything. You're just kind of a brick in the room. You're like a warm body that's just kind of there. The perfect mean between them is wittiness. Your wit. You're smart, you're funny, people like you, you're popular, and so all of these kind of have similar things, and this is interesting as we were talking about before, because this one doesn't vary according to the individual. This is very set in stone, right? I mean, I guess the interpretation is up to the individual as always, but I'm just saying like an excess of this is good and a deficiency in this is bad, and so I think it seems more of an attempt to kind of lay down hard rules, but I guess you can just disagree with hard rules if they're laid down.
That's fair. I mean, are there really any problems with this kind of morality? Because it's like, hey, if you do too much of something, you're doing it wrong. If you do too little of it, you're doing it wrong. But as long as you kind of base yourself and your goodness on attaining these virtues, right? And everyone does that, then everyone should be virtuous. What's the problem with that?
I guess is that it doesn't really tell you how to act in any specific situation, right? It's all subjective based on the person, right? And in one situation, right, I could be thinking like, oh, I'm being way too rash here, right? And, you could be thinking at the same time, oh, he's showing so much cowardice. I mean, so it all depends on the person. So, well, it seems like, oh, like this is the answer. We solved it, right? We finished ethics. Like, it doesn't really tell us how to act in any sort of situation. It tells us, to moderate things, which I think makes sense.
And what if you were talking about a mean in terms of intellect, and you don't want to be a nerd, but you don't want to be an idiot, so you go for the middle ground when you are actually limiting your own potential. Same thing with strength or anything like that. Anything that we generally consider to be a virtue or a positive thing, like intellect or strength or honesty, maybe. But the Aristotelian view would have us believe that it's the middle point that we actually should strive for.
So it's all in moderation, right? I mean, do y'all ever go to the gym and then like do it halfway and are like, I mean, if I do it too much, then that's kind of bad.
Right, if I study too much, I'll get too good a grade in the class, and that just wouldn't be good for anyone, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to sit in the middle of that bell curve,
Right, exactly.
You want to curve the class in your way.
Yeah.
Be the curve. Okay, so yeah, that is Aristotle, right? I mean, a lot better than, hey, utilitarianism and consequentialism, because at least we're not basing it off what you think. But it's still kind of what you think. And more importantly, it's like we got a bunch of virtues. We got like fear and cowardice, pleasures and pains, anger, self-expression, conversation. Who chooses these virtues? Aristotle chose them a couple thousand years ago. Why are we still sticking with these ones, right? Are these all the virtues? Are all these virtues the important ones? I mean, are we going to find some new ones that we have to figure out, right? I mean, what if someone did all of these things but still ended up being an immoral person? Is that even possible? It's like, how do you know that this is everything?
Right. And I mean, it doesn't set out any rules or anything, right? It's not like lying is always bad or lying is bad except in these situations, right? It doesn't really provide any moral code, right?
Yeah, it's just kind of like, hey, that if you're lying too much, then that's bad. But if you lie not enough, then that's also bad. So just lie the right amount. And it does not tell you what the right amount is. That is up for you. to decide. So, there's some subjectivity there. But last up, these are all things that the individual should aspire to be, right? So we got about consequences, and these are things external to the individual, more importantly. We got consequences, right? Which it doesn't matter why you did it. It's all about what it gains. We've got about ethics, which is what you should want to attain. Next up, we've got the final philosophy that
of
we'll
all
be
time.
talking about today.
Of all time. Last philosophy that exists.
No, it's done. It's done over.
We
this.
finished
It's
it.
so over. But of course, before we get into that, we got to take a short break. So,
we do. For the greater good, I think.
Yeah, Charlie, take us out for a sec.
It won't be too long. It won't be too short. But this has been School of Athens at WPEA 90.5 FM. Thank you.
And we are back. Welcome. This is WPEA 90.5 FM Exeter School of Athens. Charlie, who are you? He doesn't know. Carter, who are you?
I'm Aavik.
Okay. Charlie, do you figure yourself out yet?
I think I'm Charlie, but I'm having a tough time coming to terms with that.
I'm sorry for your loss.
And Carter, who are you?
I'm Charlie.
Okay, makes sense. Now that we've got that sorted out, let's get back to deontology.
All right. So deontology, it's a big word, right?
Right.
And unlike the other things, you can't really know what it's about just by the word itself. Like consequentialism, that's about consequences, man. Utilitarianism, that's about, I don't know, utility, maybe?
Yeah.
Now, so virtue ethics, it's about the ethics of virtue, man. But deontology, I don't know, that's a weird one. Deontology is kind of the most holistic. I know. We're applying to colleges right now.
That's a trigger word for college admissions.
Oh no.
It's the most holistic view, right? It's not just about, hey, what you've done, but it's about why you did them. It's about acting according to certain rules, certain ethics that guide your internal principles rather than what you've done to the external world or the person that you're trying to achieve. It is all about the intent and the action. To some degree, it's also about what you do externally, but it's following certain rules. It's following certain guidelines. And I know that's very vague, but it's more than just consequences. It's more than just appealing to virtues.
Right. So utilitarianism was very much the ends justify the means, right? Like if it ends well, that's great. Whatever happened along the way was good because it resulted in a good thing. Deontology, as far as I understand, is the opposite, right? The means justify the ends, kind of. If you act in a good way, good things will happen. Or at least if you act in a good way, you're not at fault, right? Just, if everyone can just act in a good way, we'll be fine.
Right. Exactly. And in fact, that is kind of the basis of a lot of thinkers throughout history. So, in fact, there's one certain philosophy that I want to explain to you guys, or at least bring to you guys, and it's thought of by a lot of philosophers separated throughout time. The most recent and the most Western of these is my boy Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant, you guys familiar with him?
I've heard about him. He was the no lying dude, right?
He's kind of the no lying dude. Charlie's over there. He's crying in the corner. Not sure what's going on there. Charlie, you got opinions on Kant?
I am conflicted about Kant. I had a heated discussion today in one of my classes about Immanuel Kant because of what I think to be thinking too much is what I like to call it. And I had the same problem with what was it, Nietzsche or something like that? It's just like he's too deep in his head is what I think. Anyway, we'll get into it, but let's move on.
Let's move on indeed.
Let's move.
Yeah, we will also get to Nietzsche at some point. Nietzsche. He'll end any guy like his name in a spelling bee. That's from Epic Rap Battles of History, actually. The Western philosophers versus Eastern philosophers. We should perform
Anyway,
that.
back to Immanuel Kant, right?
Should perform that. Spoken word.
So, Immanuel Kant, he was a German philosopher. He was like mid to late in 19th. Hold on, I'm doing the math. Mid to late 18th century, actually, 1700s. I hate the way we name centuries. But like,
well, what would you rather? Sorry, continue.
the numbers, they're not right.
They are. They mean what they mean.
Call them the 0th century. Why you got to be the first?
But year 4 is that's the 0th century.
Yeah, there's a 0 in the hundreds place.
So if someone crosses the line before everyone else, did they finish in 0th place?
Honestly, that's not a bad system. Computers start at 0, right? Y'all took comp sci. They start counting at 0. We should start at 0. We really should.
Fine. Yeah, continue.
Okay, so he influenced some of the other German boys. My boy Nietzsche, Nietzsche. He was influenced by my other boy Descartes. Y'all know Descartes?
René,
that's
the
René,
founder of Cartesian mathematics.
Yeah. Usually, you start talking about him in the dictionary, like he kind of comes before like equestrians and that kind of thing, because D comes before E.
Right.
But if you did it the other way around, then that would be putting Descartes before the horse, right? So that's this is a Kant. I don't have any more jokes. So this is Kant. He had this thing called the categorical imperative. It's a big word. It's very weird. It's a very important sounding rule. But I'll be honest, my boy was not the first to think of this. And in fact, a person who thought of this much long before him, and in fact, slightly more influential, was my boy Jesus H. Christ.
What?
Yeah. He thought of the categorical imperative, but I don't know. He put it a little better.
Well, it seemed like there were plenty of categorical imperatives before Jesus. I mean, the 10 Commandments are all categorical, right? Thou shalt not kill.
Well, that's the thing. Categorical imperative. I'm leading up to it because I'm building up, right? It's not exactly just a category of rules. It's this very specific way of thinking. But I'm kind of building up by saying like Kant thought about it, but also Jesus thought about it. Before Jesus, Confucius thought about it, right? So we got China, we got the Middle East, we got Europe. Everyone's thinking about it, right? But more importantly, you guys have heard of it before in elementary school, because the categorical imperative is the golden rule.
What?
Major beef with the golden rule.
You're not a golden rule fan?
I hate the golden rule.
What's the golden rule?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
On God. And when I say on God, I mean that literally, because I think that's word for word in the Bible. But
Confucius.
Yes. Is that Confucius?
Yeah.
Oh,
but I mean, they probably said it in some translation somewhere.
You can translate the Bible however you want.
I mean, the Vatican did it, so they didn't translate it. It was like Latin only, guys. No reading.
Maybe the real Bible interpretation were the friends we made along the way, you guys.
Probably.
So, anyways, the golden rule, it's all about doing unto others what you would want done unto yourself, and not doing unto others what you would not want done unto yourself. And that the categorical imperative is, it's that pretty much. It's about, hey, the right thing is if you would want this done to you, and the wrong thing is if you would not want this done to you. So if that's the case, y'all remember the whole deal about like stealing money?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't want money stolen from me.
Right.
But then, hold on. Is that a right thing then?
So back to my beef with the golden rule. My elementary school ran almost entirely on the golden rule. We were told the golden rule at all times. What I don't like about the golden rule is it assumes, A, that everyone agrees with the golden rule, and B, more importantly, that everyone has the same likes. Like it assumes everyone is the same person with the same values, right? Let's say, very simply, when I have a bad day, I like to be surrounded by cats. I just love cats. Let's say Aavik does not like cats at all, right? If I see Aavik's having a bad day, I'd surround him by cats, according to the golden rule, because I want to do to him what I would want done to me. That'd be horrible for Aavik because he doesn't like cats. But oh well, I mean, I follow the golden rule, right? I should be golden.
Yeah.
I heard I heard phrased after this, after the golden rule, the platinum rule, which I think is less aware. It's on the up and up. In philosophical circles in elementary school, it's kind of on the rise. Do unto others as they would like done unto them, which obviously has its limitations too. I mean, like you don't want to just become like a servant to random people, but at least now you're considering what they want, not just what you want.
Absolutely right. So. I mean, the golden rule and the Confucian rule and the some sorry, Charlie looked at me and he had that kind of gleam in his eyes. So we'll get to him in a second. But the the categorical imperative is actually slightly different than the golden rule. I dragged it down, dragged it through the dirt to compare it to the elementary school philosophy because I got beef with Kant for no reason other than he's got a weird last name. So the Kant categorical imperative is a little more than just do unto others what you would want done unto yourself, but it is kind of word for word, act only according to sorry, let me get in my zone. Act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Kant, 1785, page 30. What does that mean? That means that basically if you were to only do something, if everyone were to do that thing, society would work well, or you would want everyone to do that thing, right? So what about lying? I mean, consequentialism says that, or utilitarianism, I guess, to some degree says that, hey, lying is allowed in certain scenarios if it helps more than hurts, right? Aristotle would say that a little bit of lying is good for you, just a treat. But my boy Kant is like, hey, I mean, if everyone lied, that would be no good. That would be no bueno for el sociedad. I swear I speak better Spanish. I swear I speak better Spanish. It's for the bit, you guys. But basically, it's like, hey, if everyone followed the rules, you guys, then society would be perfect, man. I mean, that sounds pretty good.
One small issue. We talked about this a little bit, but there are always exceptions to these sweeping generalizations these philosophers tend to make. And one of these generalizations, actually, Kant brings up himself. He does his own. I don't know where I was going with that, but so what he says, or I don't know if he says this actually. I could be wrong. Basically, it's a situation where, say you're at your house and you have your friend over, and a guy comes over to your house and says, "Hey, I'm trying to kill your friend. Let's call him Joe. Can you tell me where Joe is?" And then you say, "Well, he left the house already, even though you think he didn't. But actually, Joe heard the conversation and left the house before you lied. So, on the way out of the doorway, the murderer sees Joe and kills him on the spot. So by lying, you have killed your friend, and therefore lying is bad."
Interesting. What I would respond to Kant is that this system works if everyone agrees on the system. Like if everyone always agrees not to lie, then it's fine. Then it works out and everyone's very honest with each other and there's no deceit. But it really, really doesn't work out if only half the people agree to the system, right? Because then you have a bunch of people who can murder really easily and a bunch of people who get murdered because they told the truth.
I think we call that half that doesn't lie suckers. I think that's the term for it. There's this great movie. I say great even though I've never seen it. I keep seeing clips on it on YouTube Shorts, so I've pretty much seen half the movie in 30-second clips. But it's The Invention of Lying. Have y'all ever heard of it?
Oh no, not at all. It sounds fabulous though.
It's by a comedian, Ricky Gervais. Gervais. How do you pronounce his last name?
Gervais. Yeah.
Gervais. That's the boy.
Is he Brazilian?
Is he Brazilian? No, he's white.
He's British.
He's British. Yeah,
quite British.
Incredibly British. He is a comedian. He's been doing this for a little bit, but this was in 2009, and I think it's just recently made a resurgence. Basically, no one in this world has ever lied before, right? He is the first man, and it's set in the modern world, and it's like no one in the history of ever it knows what lying is or how to lie. It's like that is not how that works. People can only tell the truth. But Ricky Gervais, he does not. He suddenly develops this ability to lie. And he's like, damn, how can no one else do this? So he's like, and then of course, comedy, movie hijinks await, and he continues to lie and funny things happen and everything. But as Kant would put it, like that world where everyone tells the truth, that's kind of the perfect world, isn't it?
I mean, sure, yeah. If everyone is honest, then why lie? I guess. Well, or not. I mean, I don't know. To go back to the murder example, let's say the friend Joe just sits on the couch the whole time. I mean, the murderer is being honest and saying, "I'm looking for Joe. I'd like to murder him." And then even if you tell the truth, and everyone has told the truth in this situation, Joe still gets murdered, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. So then, do we follow Kant? Do we mess with Kant? Do we like Kant?
I don't.
We can't even Kant.
Not really. I think it's too naive as well. I don't think it's possible to ever say this action is always wrong.
And why would you say, like, in that specific instance? I mean, even robbing the bank. Like, obviously, I don't want everybody to rob banks. I'm saying my specific situation is, important enough for me to want to rob this bank, and I think that it's warranted. But I don't know where he gets the idea that all of our actions should be extrapolated onto the entirety of humanity, because that would be ridiculous. I mean, if you are in imminent danger and you have to kill somebody in self-defense, you are not necessarily saying that you want everybody to start killing each other. That would be, like I said, ridiculous. I think he's way too deep in his own head in this one.
Okay. Yeah, he's too much of a yapper.
Too much. Too Japanese.
Yeah, I mean, to toot my own horn, it all goes back to me, right? At the beginning, where I was like, well, I have my own set of values, and I change them all the time. Yeah, it's just all vibes, Like, if you restrict yourself too much to never lying, never, doing anything that could be bad, I mean, you might end up murdered on your friend's couch, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Could happen.
Could happen.
So, that is about it for today, actually. We've clearly found that no morality is the same. So right after this break, we'll have a short summary. We'll have a short discussion about, like, hey, what do we learn? What's the right thing? And then we will have to be gone for about a week.
No. Well, I guess it's for the greater good. Anyways, this has been and will continue to be after the break, School of Athens. Please stay with us. We'll see you in a moment.
Lounge. Wednesdays, 6 to 7 p.m. for all your jazz needs.
And we are back. So, long-term members of this or fans of this show might recognize that as the other show that I do. And the reason that I used that specifically is because we have a small correction to make for all you loyal fans, which I know all of you listening are. That is, in fact, Exeter Jazz Lounge, and unlike what it claims, Wednesdays 6 to 7 p.m., we are not on Wednesdays 6 to 7 p.m. And for the time being, I recommend that all promos you hear on this station be disclaimed that the times may have changed, as it is a new term, it is a new year, new 2024, new me, new us, new WPEA, and so that show is not Wednesdays, it is Sundays from 4 to 5. Similarly, other shows will have their times changed. And you can find the schedule online on our website, on our, I guess, information. It'll be somewhere, but most importantly, on our Instagram. I think that's where we keep it. Anyways, School of Athens.
The phrase "new year and new me" implies that it's possible to have the same year and the same you. But a man cannot be the same man.
A man not river step once, twice.
That is so real,
right?
Yeah. We'll talk about that one later. That's fun. But for the time being, we're talking about morality. What is the right thing to do, you guys? So we started off with, we were talking about, hey, do we know what the right thing to do is, right? I mean, Carter, you were like, hey, I just function off vibes, basically. And Charlie, you were like, I function off what authority tells me to do.
Which is not true either.
It is also not true. But
here's an example.
He's kind of a devil's advocate, except it's not the devil, it's just capitalism. So now confusion is between, we talked about kind of morality and ethics, and then we moved on to our systems of morality. Talked about consequentialism, which is like, hey, something is right or wrong by the consequences, the ends justify the means. And we talked about why it sucks, right? We talked about utilitarianism, which is about maximizing happiness, maximizing good. It's better for the minority. If it's better for the majority than the minority, then do what the majority wants, which is also not good. So,
because genocide, man.
Genocide. We hate genociding minorities.
We hate oppressing people.
School of Athens stands against the genocide of, well, just genocide in general. We are not a fan of genocide.
Amoral things. We stand against immorality.
On God.
Right.
Anyway. Wait, is me saying on God blasphemous?
I think so.
I should probably stop.
Well, if you want to. It's up to you.
Is
It's
it
the
though?
vibes, I think. There's no external authority saying you shouldn't or threatening you with consequences.
I think the Pope does.
He would, but
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't threaten you with consequences. He'd say you'd face your consequences in purgatory.
oh right. But then
Then
what do you
God
say
would
to
be telling me I'd face the consequences.
how about excommunication? What's up with that stuff?
They can't excommunicate you if you're not
There.
communicating.
Yeah, I'm
You're
not,
not communicating.
I am not communicated.
Well,
Y'all.
I mean, but like, I don't know.
So
they
they- well,
crucified people.
yeah, they don't do that anymore.
Not
though.
anymore. They kind of moved past
that stuff was tough though. Like I see like Christianity edits on Instagram all the time.
That's crazy.
They're
What side of
fantastic.
Instagram are you on?
Christianity.
based Christianity edits.
So next up, we talked about a virtue ethics, which is act according to virtues, be the best person that you can be based on. You got to be courageous. You got to be temperate. You got to be magnificent. I love that one. You got to have a certain amount of ambition. You got to be truthful sometimes. You got to be funny sometimes. You got to be modest sometimes. And it's like we talked about, hey, Aristotle, I mean, I understand you thought the universe was objective and everything, but it's not. What do we do with that? So, there's a little bit of subjectivity there. And then last up, we finished up with deontology, which is about, ascribing to certain rules, certain principles, rather than all the other stuff. And we talked a little about a certain example, which was Kant, which was Jesus, which was Confucius. Carter, I mean, we got a golden rule hater over here. What's the platinum rule again?
Do unto others as they would like done unto themselves.
That's, something like that. And yeah, we about finished up there. Anything you guys wanna add?
I guess robbing banks for sick children is always the answer.
Yeah.
Keep
I
doing
think
it. All you bank robber for sick children associates.
We appreciate vigilantes, I guess. Are we saying that?
Oh yeah. I'm a big fan of vigilantes, but I do not speak for Exeter or WPEA or the School of Athens for that matter.
I suppose a mean amount of vigilantes, as
Not too much, not too
a moderation of vigilantes, as Aristotle might say.
I would say that if everyone vigilanted, then no one would vigilante.
Right?
It would just be the way it is.
Yeah. So that is School of Athens for this week. We will be back next week at approximately the same time. We have plenty of show options to consider, and I have none of them in my mind at this moment.
Me neither.
So
Me neither.
hey, y'all, how do y'all feel about the man step river twice, no same man thing?
Oh, yes. Okay, can we say it once correctly for the listeners? So
I don't remember it.
Okay.
A man cannot step in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man.
He is indeed not the same river. That is true.
He is not the same river, and it is not the same man.
True. So we will talk about the permanence of the self. We're going to be talking about that quote. We're going to be talking about Buddhism. We're going to be talking about quantum mechanics. Maybe we won't talk about quantum mechanics. I can talk about quantum
We
mechanics.
can. I think that it's important in
That's
this
true.
discussion.
and we'll talk about New Year and whether or not this is a new me,
Maybe
Am
it's
I
all-
new? Who am I? Where am I?
If
How
every
did I
part
get
of
here?
you gets replaced, right? Is it still the same you?
Right.
Ship of who? I
Ship
forgot.
of you.
Ship of me. I'm the ship.
That's so poetic. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. This has been School of Athens. We'll catch you next week. I have been and will continue to be Carter Otis.
Or will you? My name is, I have been Charlie. I could be something completely different going forward.
My name is Aavik, and I will not be Aavik moving forward. I've decided to shed this mortal frame.
Okay. Well, enjoy that. And folks, enjoy your new year, your new you, and we'll see you next week.
My name is Johnny Chen, 2023-2024.